My name is Sophie Reynolds. I was 16 years old, a regular teenager with regular worries. Homework, friends, the latest music streaming charts.
And yes, social media likes. It was a Friday night when everything changed. I had been vaping for a while, thinking it was harmless, something that all my friends were doing. I didn't realize it would be the last night of my life. I had just returned from a school dance and was scrolling through my phone in bed, reading posts, comparing myself to influencers, wondering why my life didn't look as exciting as theirs. The room was dim, the glow from my phone casting shadows across the walls. I took one last drag from my vape and set it down, not noticing the tightness forming in my chest. My vision blurred. My body felt heavy. My thoughts were racing, confused, as if I were underwater. Then, darkness. A strange, serene darkness that wasn't frightening, just quiet, all-encompassing. My thoughts slowed. My heartbeat stilled. I realized I was gone. And then, light. Not ordinary light, but a living, pulsating brilliance that wrapped around me like a warm embrace. It wasn't harsh. It didn't hurt my eyes. It felt alive, aware, and it made me feel as if every fear, every anxiety I'd ever carried, was being noticed and accepted. And then I saw him, Jesus. He didn't look like the pictures from Sunday school or the illustrations in books. He was light, energy, something I couldn't name. Yet I understood instantly that it was him. His presence didn't need words at first. I felt his gaze, and it went beyond seeing. It reached into me, knowing every insecurity, every lie I believed about myself, every comparison I'd made scrolling through my social media feeds. I felt a wave of love and understanding wash over me, like the weight of the world had been lifted. It was the kind of love I didn't know existed, the kind that doesn't judge, doesn't scold, doesn't criticize. It simply sees, understands, and holds. After a moment that felt like eternity, he spoke, but not with a voice like ours. It wasn't heard with ears. It was felt inside my chest, a deep, resounding truth that filled me. Sophie, he said, you are seeing what the world often cannot. The shadows of distraction, comparison, and envy are stronger than they appear. You are small, yet your life can make a ripple in the hearts of many. I felt my chest tighten, not from fear, but from awe. I wanted to ask questions, to understand more, but he gestured, and a scene unfolded. I was suddenly looking at the world, not as I remembered it, but through the eyes of light. I saw teens hunched over their phones, faces illuminated by screens, thumbs endlessly scrolling. I saw the shadows whispering to them, words of worthlessness, lies of inadequacy, urges to compete, compare, and conform. It was subtle, invisible to most, but I could see it, and it was terrifying. Jesus showed me that this wasn't just a harmless pastime. It was a spiritual battlefield. Each swipe, each like, each comment was like a thread, tugging at hearts, shaping thoughts, whispering messages that often went unnoticed but left marks over time. I saw friends texting in groups, spreading gossip and jealousy, all while thinking they were harmlessly chatting. I saw videos of influencers, flaunting perfect lives, planting seeds of envy and anxiety. I saw teens lying awake at night, comparing themselves to these curated images, believing that their worth depended on likes and followers. And all of it, the pressure, the insecurities, the obsession, was feeding a darkness that grew quietly, imperceptibly, in their hearts. I felt my own fear, my own regrets, realizing how easy it could have been for me to be trapped by these same shadows. Then, Jesus showed me something else, a glimpse of my own life, if I stayed trapped in these distractions. I saw myself scrolling endlessly, ignoring friends in real life, avoiding family, missing chances to connect, to love, to truly be present. I saw the loneliness I would feel, the anxiety, the panic. And then I realized, that's why he had let me come here, to see, to understand, to carry the warning back. He reached out his hand, and I felt warmth flood me, like a shield against the shadows. Sophie, he said, you've been given a choice. Not everyone is shown this path. You must return, and when you do, tell them what I've shown you. Show them that life is bigger than the screens, that true connection is in hearts, not likes, that the shadows whisper constantly, but the light is stronger. Then, I felt myself being drawn back, not violently, not painfully, but gently, like floating in a current. I felt the hospital lights, the beeping machines, the sharpness of reality approaching. I felt my body, weak and fragile, and I knew I was returning, but carrying a mission. Every breath I would take from now on would be a reminder. The message isn't mine, it's his. The warning is real, the stakes are real, and the shadows are stronger than many believe. The light. Oh, the light is always stronger if we choose it. When I opened my eyes, the hospital was blinding. Tubes ran down my throat, alarms were beeping, and nurses were rushing around. My chest burned, and every movement hurt. Yet, inside me, the light from the vision hadn't faded. I could still feel him, like a whisper at the edge of my soul, reminding me of what I had seen. I realized that I had been clinically dead for almost 12 minutes. They told my parents I shouldn't have survived, that the damage to my lungs and heart was severe. But here I was, alive, carrying something far heavier than fear or pain, a purpose. I learned later that my heart had stopped several times. The doctors had shocked me back 4 times. They were about to call my time of death when, somehow, I returned. My mom held my hand and cried. My dad sat silently, tears streaming down his face. I couldn't speak because of the tube, but I squeezed her hand, trying to convey that I had seen something incredible, something that mattered, far more than the pain or the hospital machines. I wanted to tell her about the light, about Jesus, about the warning for my generation, but all I could do was breathe and pray silently. That night, as I drifted in and out of consciousness, flashes of what I had seen replayed in my mind. Teens hunched over phones, snapping selfies with fake smiles, obsessing over likes and comments. I saw the social media feeds as streams of shadows, each post feeding envy, doubt, and insecurity. I saw parents distracted by their own devices, missing moments, letting screens replace conversation, letting connection be replaced by comparison. It was also clear the virtual world was a battlefield, and Gen Z was walking into it blindfolded. Then I felt him again, not physically, but in the quiet of my mind. "Sophie," he said, "this is what the world does when hearts are left unguarded. Every swipe, every scroll, every comparison is a shadow creeping into their lives. But it can be broken. You can carry the light back. You can speak, even if only a few listen. You can teach that mercy, patience, and presence are more powerful than any screen. That true life is in connection, not projection." I realized he wasn't just showing me a warning about social media. It was about hearts. The shadows in the feeds were reflections of shadows in the soul. Fear, jealousy, anger, loneliness. Teens were pouring energy into a world of illusions, while ignoring the living light that could heal, protect, and guide them. And then, suddenly, I saw myself again, but differently. I saw the path ahead of me if I shared this message. I saw conversations with friends, warnings to classmates, small acts of guidance. Each one seemed insignificant at first, but like tiny ripples in a pond, I felt they could grow. Jesus didn't scold or condemn. He didn't point fingers. Instead, he showed me the reality that many would never see until it was too late. The addiction to validation, the shadows feeding off anxiety, the loneliness disguised as entertainment. It was all avoidable. He showed me that the same hands that scrolled could also reach out to others in love, that the same eyes glued to screens could also see real pain and comfort those who suffered. It was a choice, a constant, daily choice. Then, a scene appeared of my friends. Some were still scrolling, laughing at memes, posting selfies. Others were reaching out, hugging, listening, showing care. The difference between the two worlds was subtle, but striking. One was shadows, one was light. And it hit me. This message wasn't about fear, it was about empowerment. Everyone has the opportunity to bring light into their own lives and the lives of those around them. Even teenagers, even in a world dominated by technology, even amidst the darkness of envy and distraction. I felt my chest tighten again, not from illness, but from urgency. I had to go back. I had to breathe, to heal, to speak. I had been given a glimpse of both darkness and light, and my life now carried a responsibility. I was no longer just a teenager worrying about school, friends, or likes. I was a messenger, a survivor, a witness to the reality that social media, while alluring, is a battlefield for hearts, and every action scroll, post, comment, feeds one side or the other. And then, just as I had first felt the pull of life, it came again. The hospital, the tubes, the blinding lights. But inside me, the vision stayed alive. I knew what I had seen, what I had to say. I knew that every teen, every parent, every person who dared to listen could choose differently. I wasn't meant to keep this message for myself. I had seen too much to be silent. Over the next few days in the hospital, I couldn't shake the vision. Even as my body healed, my mind was restless. Every beep of a machine, every glance at a phone in the room, every social media notification reminded me of the shadowy truths I had seen. I realized that what I had experienced wasn't just a personal near-death moment. It was a warning for my entire generation. The same things that almost killed me through vaping were mirrored in the way my peers were being consumed by their devices, constantly chasing approval, likes, and fleeting attention. I began to understand that social media wasn't evil by itself. It was how people interacted with it, the unseen patterns it created in hearts and minds, that held the danger. Teens were comparing themselves to impossible standards, feeling inferior when influencers posted filtered lives. Anxiety and depression thrived in the gaps between expectation and reality. I remembered the shadows from my vision, dark whispers feeding anger, envy, and loneliness. Those same whispers were in every feed, lurking behind every notification, waiting to convince young hearts they were never enough. One night, I drifted into sleep and found myself back in the light, the same living, breathing glow of Jesus. His presence was calm, yet urgent. "Sophie," he said, "you have seen what is coming if hearts remain unguarded. Gen Z faces a peril not of fire or flood, but of distraction and despair. The chains are subtle: comparison, vanity, isolation. But every heart has a choice. Even a small act of love, attention, or kindness can sever a chain." His gaze pierced me, not with accusation, but with the weight of truth. "You survived to bear witness, to show that light can prevail in a world of shadows." I watched scenes unfold, of teens scrolling late at night, eyes glazed, thumbs moving without thought, feeding the same shadows I had seen. Then, flashes of the same teens turning away from their screens, reaching for a friend in need, comforting a sibling, helping a stranger, praying, or even just smiling at someone without judgment. The difference was immediate and profound. One world spiraled into darkness, the other radiated light. I realized that my generation had the power to choose daily which world to live in, and that every small act of attention or kindness was a weapon against the shadows. Jesus didn't lecture, he didn't preach, he simply revealed. I felt each scene as if I were living it myself. I felt the anxiety of a teen whose self-worth depended on likes. I felt the relief of another who finally looked up from the phone and helped a younger student struggling in the hall. And then, he showed me something terrifying. A vision of endless scrolling feeds filled with anger, conspiracy, and despair. It was a cycle that repeated itself, feeding hatred, jealousy, and self-loathing. He said, "This is what happens when hearts are surrendered to shadows. But it is not inevitable. Light can break through, one heart at a time." I began to weep, understanding the enormity of the task. I had survived vaping, survived death, and now carried a responsibility far heavier than I had ever imagined. "What do?" I whispered in the vision. Jesus' form pulsed softly, the vibration resonating in my chest. "Speak," he said. "Show them what you have seen. Warn them, guide them, teach them to guard their hearts. They cannot fight shadows with screens alone. They must see, connect, love, and forgive." The weight of it all was crushing. Every notification I'd ignored, every post I'd envied, every hour wasted on comparison, now felt like a reminder of what was at stake. I understood that my story could be a spark, a single word, a single shared warning, a single act of love could start to dismantle the shadows. And I knew, deep in my soul, that if I didn't share it, no one else would see it quite the way I had. That night, as I finally drifted to a fragile sleep, I held on to a new understanding. Social media could be a tool, a connection, a bridge, but only if hearts remained vigilant, only if mercy, patience, and love were stronger than envy, comparison, and anger. And I made a silent vow. I would tell everyone, even if only a few would listen, the truth I had seen in the light. I woke up with a start, my chest burning, my throat raw from the tube. The hospital room was filled with blinding lights and the frantic beeping of machines. Nurses were shouting, doctors rushing, everything was chaotic, but I felt strangely calm. I had been clinically dead for nearly 10 minutes, and yet, here I was, alive. My body ached, my limbs trembled, but my mind was on fire with the truth I had witnessed. I squeezed my mother's hand, unable to speak at first, but the message inside me was louder than any words my voice could form. The days that followed were grueling. Recovery wasn't just physical, it was spiritual and emotional. My friends and family marveled at my survival. Doctors admitted they had no explanation, and I realized that this second chance at life was not for me alone. It was a mission. The visions I had seen, the shadows feeding on envy, isolation, and comparison, were real. They were not abstract concepts. They were present in every scroll, every post, every like, and every share. I started small. I talked to my friends honestly about what I had experienced, about the dangers of surrendering their hearts to fleeting approval. I shared the visions, the shadows, the glimpses of light. Some laughed, some rolled their eyes, but a few listened, and I saw sparks of understanding. I realized that even one heart reached could become a beacon. I taught them to pause, to notice how they felt when scrolling, to question why certain posts made them anxious or angry. I encouraged them to choose connection over comparison, empathy over envy. Then I began speaking beyond my immediate circle. I wrote posts, created short videos, and shared my story on platforms that had once felt like traps. I warned of the shadows, of the way social media could steal attention, distort self-worth, and cultivate bitterness. I urged people to take a step back, to look into their own hearts, and to choose mercy over judgment, kindness over anger. The words that had been delivered to me by Jesus became my guiding light. It wasn't about fear-mongering, it was about awakening. I also realized the importance of prayer, of silence, of looking up from screens to see the world around us. I encouraged teens to spend time in nature, to talk face-to-face, to help others in tangible ways. Every moment spent investing in real human connection was a moment that weakened the shadows. I shared my near-death experience not as a horror story, but as a blueprint for survival in a world addicted to distraction. Every like, every scroll, every fleeting dopamine hit could either feed the shadows or be consciously rejected. As weeks turned to months, I watched subtle changes. A friend who had once obsessed over followers learned to help younger students at school. Another started volunteering at a local shelter instead of spending evenings scrolling endlessly. The impact was small, but real. I realized that Jesus' warning wasn't just about me, it was about a generation at risk. A generation with hearts easily swayed, yet capable of profound light if guided properly. The message I carry now is simple but powerful. Gen Z faces unique challenges, and social media is both a tool and a test. The shadows are real, but so is the light. Every day, each of us has the choice to nourish the positive, to resist the negative, to act with love and mercy. My death could have been the end, but it became a beginning. I survived to witness, to guide, and to remind my generation that the real danger is not in the platforms themselves, but in what we allow to dominate our hearts. I am Sophia Morales, 15 years old, when I nearly died from vaping. I have seen the darkness, I have heard the whispers, and I have walked in the light. I have returned to tell you that every heart matters, every action counts, and every choice to love over hate, kindness over cruelty, awareness over distraction, will make a difference. The shadows are patient, but the light is persistent. Choose it, guard your hearts, and never forget that life, every breath, every heartbeat, is a gift to be lived fully, consciously, and with love.